This lesson, we're going to be putting the final touches on our gameplay. We come in as the player has to select either heads or tails. They select heads or tails, and then the computer randomly generates either heads or tails. If they selected correctly and got the same answer that the computer got, then they're going to get a point. If they got the wrong answer, if they made the wrong selection, then they are not going to get a point, and the computer is going to get a point. So our logic is fairly straightforward in this game, because we can use a conditional statement to check if the player's response is equal to the response of the computer. And if it is, then this is a win. And if it's not, then it's a loss. And we can use an if-else statement in order to handle all of that. Also, another thing that usually I like to do is to shorten some of the content here. So we can have a player guess value and more meaningful variables as well. So I'll add that in as the player guess. And we can also set one up for the computer guess as well, so that we have more of a meaningful variable name as to what these values are. So that's the player guess, that's the computer guess. Now we can compare. If the player guess is equal to the computer guess, then we have a win. Otherwise, we have a loss. Also, let's set up some scoring. And this actually needs to be a let, because the value will change. So we've got our score. Creating an array, because we've got two players here. We've got the computer and we've got the player. So one of them will be the first one and the other one will be the second. Now going into here, we can take that value of score, take the first one, and we'll increment it by 1. And if it's a loss, then we're going to do the opposite, and we're going to increment the score with index 1. We will also output those score values. So using the message, and we can add that inner HTML. So we can set that into player, and also setting up a default variable here, so default output. And then once we get that condition, we can set a value that player wins. Otherwise, the output will be equal to computer wins. And now we can output that content into the inner message there. And let's add a new line, so a line break there. And we can have the score values. So the player will have a value of whatever score index value of 0 is. And the computer will have a score of whatever the score index value 1 is. So let's try that out. So refresh, clear that, and computer wins, player 0, computer 1. Computer wins, and we should also output what was selected as well. So I'm going to simply add to here. You're going to take this message, update it here, set our message inner HTML, computer selected, and we'll output whatever the value of the computer guess was. So try that one more time. So computer selected tails, and we need to make this a little bit bigger, or we could make it a little bit smaller. And we also need some spacing in there, so some line breaks. Sometimes you do need to tweak it so the output looks right. So now we're going to select either heads or tails. We select heads, computer selected head, player wins. So player has 1, computer has 0. Again, we're going to select heads. So computer selected heads, player wins, player 2, computer 1, or computer 1 now because the computer just won because the computer selected tails. So a quick little mini game. Go ahead and try it out for yourself. Add in the final logic, and you need to play through it in order to make sure that everything is working as intended. So there's usually a few playthroughs at the end where you can make some tweaks and adjustments as needed. So go ahead and try it out for yourself. Add this into your own project and see what you can make happen with JavaScript.